when I want to hit with power, my heel comes up. This is why I tell you not to squat. The more you squat, the more the ball will jam you. Alright everyone, today we're focusing on the rhythm of the backhand rip. When performing a rip, am I making contact at the apex of the bounce or during the rising phase? So, what is the rising phase? Watch, as soon as the ball bounces, I make contact. That's hitting on the rise. Now, this timing, watch, when the ball reaches the peak of its bounce. That's called hitting at the high point, or the apex. Pay close attention, to hit on the rise, your racket must be in front and close to the ball. When I take a bigger backswing to generate power, I'm almost always hitting at the apex. So in a match, when your opponent hits with more power, what should your timing be? For instance, if he's attacking with force and I want to counter rip, when should I hit the ball? That's right, during the rising phase. The harder they hit, the more you should take the ball on the rise. This quick timing will jam them and take away their reaction time. So when should you generate your own power? At the apex. Watch apex. When you want to hit with maximum force, you should strike the ball at its apex. When you're redirecting their power, using their pace, you hit on the rise. However, this timing isn't absolute. We're just saying these contact points make the shot more consistent and effortless. When we talk about rhythm, it's not just about the moment the ball touches the racket. Watch, as soon as the ball lands on the table, I start my swing. That timing is the rising phase. Same here, the moment the ball comes over, I swing. That's the rising phase, right at the start of the bounce. Hitting the ball before it reaches its highest point, while it's still ascending, is what we call the rising phase. Hitting at the apex means you start your swing as you judge the ball is reaching its peak. The same applies to the forehand. Swing when the ball is at its highest point. This is something you have to develop through practice. As a beginner, it's naturally difficult to find this timing right away. As your skill level improves, your control over this rhythm will become much more precise. Okay, second, let's analyze the racket angle. Watch my racket angle during a drive versus a rip. First, the drive. Now, watch the rip. What's the difference? The biggest difference between the two is the point of contact on the ball. Many players struggle to learn the backhand rip because they don't adjust their racket angle enough. When you drive, the ball hits the center of the racket. For both shakehand and penhold. The contact is mostly in the middle. The motion is short and compact. No one uses such a large swing for a backhand drive. It's a very concise movement. You are making contact with the middle back of the ball. Now, watch when I rip. Pay close attention. Which part of the ball am I contacting now? The difference is huge, right? It's not a minor adjustment. One is contacting the middle of the ball, while the other is brushing the upper middle portion. So, to execute a rip, you must brush the upper middle part of the ball to create friction. Many players make errors when they rip because they're still contacting the center of the ball too much. If you rip and press down with that contact point, you're likely to make a mistake. From the very start of your backswing, your racket angle needs to be closing over the ball. I'm ripping by covering the ball. Covering and ripping. I'm keeping my racket angle very closed, right? Essentially, the V shape of your grip, for both penhold and shakehand, must lead forward with a closed angle. Only by keeping the racket closed can you confidently accelerate through the second half of the stroke. Why do so many players hit the ball long during backhand rallies? Your racket face is too open. You're hitting through it instead of brushing over it. The same issue exists in the forehand. Many people hit their forehand like this, which is a classic drive racket angle. You're just making a bigger motion, which is why the ball goes out. Let me explain the feeling of the rip. To generate quality on your backhand, your wrist must have some internal rotation. If you make contact with this angle, you won't be able to rip properly. The ball will just fly off. That's a drive or a punch block technique. So you must use internal rotation. When we rip, the tip of the racket should feel like it's pointing slightly towards your forearm. Not like this. You can't create friction this way. This becomes even more obvious when you're looping. Watch how it looks on a topspin loop. See that, everyone? Rip. Loop. Drive. Rip. Loop. Drive. There are clear changes in the racket angle. When you execute a backhand drive, your racket head points to 10 o'clock, moving from back to front. If you drop it to 7 o'clock for a drive, people will say you have a floppy wrist. But for a rip, it's okay. When I rip, my racket head might point to 7 or 8 o'clock. That's how I generate strong spin. Do you see? With more internal rotation like this, I can create much more spin. If you start your rip with the racket head at 10 o'clock, you simply won't be able to generate much spin. You'll likely pop the ball up. So, the racket head must drop slightly. Use that 7 o'clock racket position to load up and create friction on every ball. Furthermore, for the rip, you must keep the racket closed from the backswing all the way through contact. Now, let's watch my body during a counter-rip rally. First, the backhand requires a square stance. From this camera angle, my feet might look staggered, but they are actually parallel. Second, your center of gravity must be leaning forward. Remember this for your backhand. Never let your arm get too close to your body. You must maintain about a forearm's length of space between your body and the edge of the table. Only by maintaining this space can I execute a proper rip. Third, what's the biggest mistake in backhand? The biggest mistakes are leaning back and sitting down. Sitting down makes your shots loop too high. Leaning back gets you jammed. And backing away is also a huge problem. Back when we were young, the coaching philosophy for women was to play more like men. We practiced stepping around a lot. But look at the modern men's game, they all play close to the table. Very few players back up anymore. So, for your backhand, avoid these three things: sitting, leaning back, and retreating. If you do any of these, your backhand will not be good. A coach once told us, it's better to die at the front line. When you want to generate power, you must lift your back heel and push forward into the rip. For example, when I want to hit with power, my heel comes up. Pay attention to professional players, they all do this. Every one of them rips this way to create pressure. They engage their hands, body, and legs, getting into a higher posture to generate force. This is why I tell you not to squat. The more you squat, the more the ball will jam you. So, always remember to keep your center of gravity forward. When you want more power, get your body up and rip, don't squat down. This is very important. Now about the body, let me demonstrate a few rips. Pay attention. Let me break down 3 key pieces of information about the body movement. First, notice that my hips are up, not sitting down. What's the second piece of information? If you watch closely, you'll see there's a rhythm in my legs. Third, every shot involves an inward contraction and then an outward push. There's always this coiling and uncoiling motion. For instance, watch my legs closely. There's a rhythm in my legs, right? I'm not standing flat-footed. Am I using small adjustment steps? Yes. Have you ever been stuck in a backhand rally and been unable to cover a shot to your forehand? Why does that happen? Because you're standing still. The backhand body position is a bit tricky because if you stand completely still, you won't be able to keep up with the ball. But if you move too much, you can also leave a big opening for the next shot. It's a delicate balance. So, what should you focus on during backhand rips? Look, my legs have an up and down rhythm. I imagine my legs are like springs. What's the purpose of this leg movement? It helps me find the ball better. No matter where the opponent hits, I can adjust to find the right contact point. If they go to my forehand, I can also move over easily. The feeling is constantly like a coiled spring. If your feet are planted flat, how can you possibly move when they hit to your forehand? Going from a static to a dynamic state instantly is impossible for anyone. This happens all the time when transitioning from a backhand rally to an attack. It's not really bouncing, bouncing implies vertical movement. Instead, imagine your legs have the properties of a spring. It's not this kind of bounce. Those are two different things. You have to be ready to initiate movement at any moment. Your body must have this rhythm. Without it, after a backhand exchange, you won't be able to reach a single ball hit to your forehand. Let me ask you a question: where does this rhythm come from? Your knees? Your calves? Your hips? Or your ankles? It's definitely not the knees. If you use your knees like that, you'll be sore in 2 days. The movement is too large. It actually originates from the ankle joint, between your lower leg and your foot. The power comes from here. The ankle. Watch, it's the ankle's position. Now, don't overdo this. Your heels shouldn't lift too high off the ground. If your weight is completely on the balls of your feet, you'll be unstable and can only hit one shot, especially without professional training. The rhythm comes from the ankles. I feel my backhand is supported by my ankles pushing and tapping. In any backhand situation, the movement is so subtle you might not see it. My heels never fully plant on the ground. They are always in a state of floating, with slight up and down movement. But this floating motion is very, very small. It feels like the heel is about to touch, then it bounces back up. Then it almost touches again and bounces back up. The range of motion is definitely not large, it's just a tiny bit. Just like this. See? It's a very small movement. Normally, about 60 to 70% of your weight is still on the balls of your feet. It's just that little bit of heel movement that keeps you active. If you plant your feet, your start will be too slow. You must not plant your feet completely flat. But if the movement is too large, you'll lose control. So, the feeling is that your heels are slightly bouncing up and then lowering. This doesn't require a lot of strength. I'm explaining it this way specifically for amateur players. Professionals have a much larger range of motion.